Well, welcome everyone here, and to those watching this My Place Cafe Afternoon Prose reading on YouTube. My Place Cafe is still open, so we hope you can stop by. Above My Place Cafe is the Artist Loft. You can learn more by looking up the Artist Loft on Instagram or Facebook. Right now, they are doing a Dia de los Muertos and Halloween party makeup cosmetics. So if you're into that or would like to do something like that in these next last few days, do hit them up for an appointment. Today's featured writer is known as a musician in the Pasadena Altadena area. I'm sure the tellers ring a bell to some of you from patronizing places like 1881. What he will be reading to us is a memoir he wrote titled The Book of Is. From reading an excerpt I was provided by the author, Isidore Banks was lynched because he refused to relent to white supremacy. In 2010, Is was officially given a military burial. What we will learn at this reading is about, for instance, the Civil Rights Cold Case Initiative. These cold cases are the product of implicit racism. Even now, it's sad knowing Black lives in America remain at risk. So please, for those that are here and on YouTube, welcome Kevin Banks. Thank you.
The Book of Is. The past is never fully gone. It is absorbed into the present and the future. It stays to shape what we are and what we do. My story begins in a day of fearful apprehension when the jangling harshness of my digital alarm clock began ringing at 6 a.m. A necessary annoyance meant to wake me at the 11th hour, but it was too late. I had already been awakened by a disturbing premonition that left me with an uneasy feeling of knowing something ominous was about to happen. I could feel it in my gut, and this gave me reason to pause. I pushed the snooze button for a few more precious moments of self-reflection before the alarm sounded off again to remind me that regardless of whether I was mentally prepared or not, it was time to rise up. Time to face the day, and unbeknownst to me, it was a day that would be filled with consequences and the fullness of time. On that fateful Tuesday morning in July, on the 15th day of the year 2008, I got dressed in the warm glow of the morning light. My destination was M Audio, a music technology company that I worked for during this period of circumstance. Rush hour traffic was more congested than usual, but despite the traffic delays, I managed to arrive early. I parked my salsa red Toyota Sienna in the company parking lot and walked to the front entrance of the building to swipe my security key card, headed to my office. The company had recently moved from Arcadia, California to a newly renovated 32,000 square foot open industrial warehouse space located in Irwindale, California. The building had high ceilings and concave skylights, allowing the morning sunrise to illuminate the workspaces with a soft, natural light, transforming the environment and creating a calm contrast between nature and technology. On this particular day, I was keen to arrive early and needed the stillness and tranquility of the morning to alleviate the apprehension I had been feeling before arriving to work. Before the computers and the technology took over, before the building exploded with the connotative noise of office chatter, before the fluorescent lighting and electrical hum ensued, and before having to assume my duties as technical support manager. Sadly, I did not get that chance. My desire for a morning meditation was abruptly interrupted by the flick of a single switch. Without warning, the luminescent glow of 1,000 artificial lights flooded the building and signaled the start of the workday. My only option now was to give ground and power up the 5 assorted Windows and Macintosh computer systems at my workstation. It was business as usual until a screen pop of an email notification marked urgent flashed across my computer monitor and disappeared into my inbox. After responding to the company's escalated emails posted overnight, I realized the email marked urgent was a personal correspondence from my niece, Carolyn Buttons Thompson, the only daughter of my only sister. It was a group email that included other family members with an opening greeting that seemed unassuming in its tone. Hi, all. I ran across this article and thought that it was worth sharing. Please note the mention of Grandpapa Isidore. Love you all, Buttons. The Grandpapa Isidore Buttons was referring to was my father, and I instantly felt the same familiar wave of apprehension that had awakened me at first light. The email included an attached newspaper article with CNN with a headline that read, "After 57 years, break in civil rights era cold case, the murder of Isidore Banks, one of Arkansas's notorious cold case killings during civil rights era." The headline alone sent cold shivers down my spine and left me standing at the precipice of an unmentionable thing. That thing my family rarely spoke about. That gruesome thing called murder. This single moment, now frozen in time, would encapsulate decades of my life. It was an aha moment. A moment that would, unfortunately, presage any hope of a productive day in the office. The universe had spoken in its own unique language, and the reason for my morning premonition was revealed. I had been forewarned of the impending consequences of reading this gruesome article posted Sunday, March 11, 2007, from the World News section of The Observer, page 39 of the attached hyperlink. The story that always remained imperceptible to me as a child would no longer be shrouded in mystery and based purely on conjecture and unsubstantiated rumors. CNN's justice page would be the first tangible evidence enabling me to ascertain the truth about my father's character and reputation with any certainty. Now, his darkest hour was only a click away. A hyperlink for me and the whole world to view, delivered through digital media over the internet in the most inconceivable way I could ever imagine finding out this news. Being the youngest born had precluded me from knowing any of the details of my father's murder due to the emotional and psychological damage it would have inevitably inflicted upon my young, impressionable mind, and the result of that omission would now consume every part of me and encase my soul in a deafening silence. I could only conjecture as to why Buttons would choose to send such a correspondence to my work email address instead of my personal email, considering the emotional impact. I became conflicted about reading any further, but I was unable to resist and began poring over the article, scrutinizing every word intently to furtherance of constructing its meaning, careful not to overlook any of the details. FBI hunts last of the lynchers. In an effort to close a chapter in America's history of race hate, Washington is bringing elderly Klansmen to justice for killings carried out up to 60 years ago. In the 50s and 60s, black men, women, and children were often killed with impunity by Southern whites who believed they would get away with murder. There were many unsolved racial murders from the civil rights era that had occurred, and among them, the most heinous and notorious of all came on the heels of a wave of lynchings in Brandenburg and Birmingham, Alabama, Cleveland, Ohio, and Charleston, South Carolina, Around that time, Isidore Banks tried to flee for his life to the safe harbor of a supportive neighbor, the Gammons, when a lynch mob of whites wanted to take him and take his land, his wealth, and his life. They came looking for him. Isidore Banks was born on July 15th, 1895, during a period of Arkansas history where violence against African Americans was once again on the rise. Banks was a World War I veteran and a farmer. His property was envied by local white people. Despite these obstacles, Banks had become a prominent and respected leader of Freemasons and one of the wealthiest African American landowners in this region of Arkansas, known for its racially violent past. Banks is reported to have owned more than 2,000 acres of land, which he farmed or leased to tenants, and a number of businesses. Banks helped other black farmers with loans to buy seeds and farm equipment and supported the local black schools with supplies. He was a philanthropist for the black community of Marion, Arkansas. He helped bring electricity to Marion in Crittenden County. He was nicknamed the Bank for his generosity in giving out money to help others start businesses and take care of their families. The murder of Isidore Banks dealt a severe blow to the African American community of Crittenden County. Local news affiliates in the Encyclopedia of Arkansas History and Culture all published the following amalgamation of articles on his life. Isidore Banks, a 59-year-old prominent African American landowner, disappeared on June 4th, 1954. He was missing for a period of about 4 days in which he was allegedly tortured, and folks could hear his unearthly moans and groans both day and night throughout the countryside. It was reported that Banks was kidnapped by his supposed black friends when he left the bank to get money to pay the wages of his employees. One of the blacks drove his truck around to deceive the town folks into thinking that it was Isidore Banks driving around and that all was well. On or about June 8, 1954, Banks' truck was discovered in a wooded property just outside of Marion, Crittenden County, by Carl Prum, a neighboring landowner. His coat's still inside and the battery run down. His car keys were still in the ignition, and his loaded Remington shotgun was found unfired inside, which implied that he knew his assassins or that he was taken by surprise. Probably a combination of both. Later, authorities found Banks' body chained to an oak sapling tree. According to the coroner, he was castrated. One of his arms and his penis were both blowtorched off, and his penis stuffed in his mouth. He had been viciously beaten, tortured, mutilated, and set on fire, doused with gasoline, and burned beyond recognition from the knees up. A can of gasoline was found close to the body. The coroner, T.H. McGough, found no sign of robbery or struggle at the scene, indicating that the killing may have occurred elsewhere. Isidore was a big man at 6 feet 6 inches tall and 300 pounds. His body was likely carried by several people to the site. He was only half that size after his upper body was incinerated by flames. The coroner also reported that either a knife or a firearm discharge left a hole in Banks' right side. Isidore Banks was a hero of the blacks and perceived as a threat to whites because of his wealth and land. He was lynched because he was too proud and independent to bow down to white supremacy and repudiated Jim Crow laws, which culminated in his grisly death and the ruthless takeover of his estate. The slaying, a year before Rosa Parks refused to give up her seat to whites on a bus in Montgomery, Alabama, remains one of the nation's oldest unsolved civil rights cases. After his death, more than 2,000 acres of his land, as well as other holdings, including $93,000 in a bank, were illegally taken by his murderers. The blacks who conspired to betray my father took over his businesses, while the whites took over his land. The family had to flee the state. The land illegally seized after Isidore Banks' death is now covered with six-figure homes, hotels, restaurants, and retail outlets. Isidore Banks kept a detailed ledger of how much money black folks in Marion, Arkansas owed him, By all accounts, he was owed a lot. The ledger is currently in the safekeeping of a family friend. Banks was a World War I veteran, but he did not get a proper military burial send-off until April 2010, almost 56 years after his murder. On this day, in a rare moment in time, a semblance of dignity was restored to Banks, more than 90 years after he served his country in the Great War. A traditional three-shot volley salute and the solemn sound of taps echoed across the Black Cemetery in the Delta Flatlands of Arkansas, just across the Mississippi River from Memphis, Tennessee. Isidore Banks was a Prince Hall Freemason, and the Masons received numerous death threats, including the genocidal eliminations of anyone, everyone, if they showed up at Banks's funeral for Masonic rites. Isidore Banks was finally given his Masonic rites October 2nd, 2010. Old wounds etched deeply into the farthest recesses of my subconscious mind came rushing to the surface after I read this article. The existential past that I had so meticulously and elaborately fabricated to my reality crumbled like an ancient facade, partially substituted by my own visionary fantasy of thoughts, hopes, and ambitions, already imagined as coming to pass in a world where I firmly believe racism didn't exist, and love conquered all. In the late 1960s, I was a hippie teenager in an era of empowerment, rejecting conventional society and advocating love, peace, and simple idealistic values, in stark contrast to the 1940s and 1950s era of race hate. The hip young whites I associated with in my circle of friends were artists, poets, musicians, and intellectuals living in an open society that embraced universalism and inclusion. So my 21st century postmodern dream of being free from the powers of others, the dream of being more than a half a man, more than a second-class citizen, well, that dream was over. Nothing could have been more disconcerting than to read the CNN article reaffirming that hatred was alive and well and the reason for my father's murder. My source of consolation, my secret hiding place, was instantly obliterated by the controlling influences of a racist America. And I was forced to relive the past, inherited from the gene pool of my family's collective trauma. Childlike innocence had lulled me into a false sense of security in my adult life. As I imagined my father's restless soul and the countless souls of other Black men taken from this world by hatred. The inescapable realization that my life would always be at risk simply because of the color of my skin forced me to reflect upon the value of Black lives held in such blatant and violent disregard. The CNN article untangled the truth from the lie and made it perfectly clear that I could no longer stand peacefully rooted in my present reality, and I was inextricably torn between two worlds, past and present. I became anxious and fearful of the future, preoccupied with the thoughts in my head, mulling over the negativity, the struggles of my family's past, my father's murder, what was, what could have been, and what I thought happened versus what actually happened. And suddenly, the silence around me relinquished ascendancy and burst into a cacophony of office noise, hissing side effects. It was 9 a.m., and I was caught in the penetrating eye of public scrutiny, in the middle of an emotional breakdown, grappling with the reality of racism in America as my staff of 16 technicians began arriving just in time to witness me teetering on the brink of emotional procurement. I was a fearless leader, setting the example, climbing the corporate ladder of success and being groomed for an executive position as director of worldwide technical services. Work was not the place to show any sign of weakness. Corporate America was watching, and I needed to be strong, assertive, self-assured, and above all, self-confident. The old adage, never let him see you cry, reverberated like a cadence in my head while trying to conceal convulsive sobs beneath my breath to no avail. Not surprisingly, a coworker came over to ask, "Is everything all right?" I managed to answer with a broken whisper that was almost inaudible. "Yes, I'm fine," I responded, averting my eyes to hide my tears, and politely excused myself to find solace in one of the public restrooms. I stood motionless, looking into the mirror at the empty reflection staring back at me. Any notion I had previously held of ever becoming a leader, setting the standard, or raising the bar suddenly seemed unsustainable. The multitudes of leadership and management training seminars I had attended over the years to prepare me for success in corporate America now paled in comparison to confronting my family's trauma. So I doused my face with cold water and returned to my desk, still visibly shaken, staring at the pile of paperwork that urgently needed my attention. I looked beyond the skylights above me, and for the first time in my life, I could see through life's lens with clarity and naked awareness. And I gathered the remaining rays of sunlight like precious diamonds before leaving the office. It was an arduous journey home, and when I arrived, I tried to lay my burdens down. The last sentence of the CNN article kept coming up. The family continues to search for answers after this brutal crime. The family continues to search for answers about this brutal crime. Exasperated me. In the past, my family was unable to seek resolution from the outside world. Fear was the reason why we never looked back and sought emotional safety by fleeing. It was a classic fight or flight response, which occurs in reaction to a perceived harmful event, attack, or threat to survival. Instead, we accepted our fate and rushed beyond the hardship. Jean-Paul Marie wrote in 2003 on April 8th, "Neither the sun nor death can be looked at with a steady eye. A human being should not have to face the void of death, but when that happens, the trauma can remain invisible for a while. It is an image that penetrates the brain, staying there and taking up all the space inside. It can overwhelm you, petrify you, and eventually drive you to a dark place. The key to avoiding that dark place was to look into the mirror of my soul and reflect upon the things I was most blind to, the things not yet finished, and the karmic relationship between me and my father. Looking back over decades of unknowingness, I had become comfortably numb with those vague memories from my childhood, memories of running for my life, running from the constant threat of violence, and accepting my own inevitable demise. Whoever killed my father, and for whatever reason, had also waged a vendetta against my family and silenced anyone who dared cry out for justice. Anyone who would even so much as acknowledge my father's murder was silenced by the constant threats of retribution and flagrant promises made to inflict injury or damage. For some of us who have experienced death, the images are horrible. They see a wordless image of oblivion that obsesses them, and the only way to cope with it is to put human words to it, so that we can organize the trauma into thoughts and actions that heal step by step to work it out, verbally, so that we can reclaim our place in humanity. If we manage to look death in the face and actually confront it, rather than keep quiet and hide, we can give back its meaning. And so the divine fruit of inspiration became my ammunition in the battle to reconcile my father's murder. Inspired by words of Jean-Paul Marie, I had to stay focused on my thoughts in order to see my purpose through. The only way to heal from this trauma is to find a way to express it through language. It's the only thing that holds all of us together. Without it, we are nothing. It's the thing that makes us human. For a moment, I couldn't speak, but then I found my voice and realized it didn't matter how long I had been silent. Looking through the mirror of my potential had revealed my purpose, and my higher self was ready to speak truth to power and confront America's history of racial inequality. Rejecting the racist indignation of the belief in the inherent superiority of one race over all others, and thereby the right to dominance, manifest and imply. What better way? What better way to do that than to make sure the past is fully explored, that wrongs committed in the past are righted, and those responsible for these forgotten deaths are brought to justice.
Wow, what you read so far was very powerful and pretty awesome, and I liked how you took it upon your like you and yeah you took upon yourself to like look into like the history of like your father's murder after so long, and yeah, just trying to just get some resolve. Pretty amazing. So, does anybody here that's in the audience have any questions or any comments to give for what Calvin has read so far?
When I was about 2.5 years old, I was born in 1952. My father was murdered in 1954. So we pretty much had to get out of there as soon as that murder happened. We had to hide. My mom had to make arrangements to leave us there to find work somewhere else. She ended up in Chicago, Illinois, and got a job, and then came to get us and relocated us to Illinois, which is pretty much my childhood as I remember growing up. And South, I don't remember so much because I'm really young. But there's something about fear, and that gives you a heightened sense of awareness. It kind of opens up your third eye or your peripheral sense that something's not right. So you're always kind of scared, but you don't know why. Your family's ushering you around and trying to hide you. Kind of makes you realize that you should pay attention to this part of your life. This is really important, even though I don't want to years old. I think that gave me the ability to remember earlier than most people can recollect. Most people say you start to remember when you're 5 and 6 and 7. I can remember being born.
Oh wow.
I can remember being.
Now, in your book, do you talk about how your mom?
Yes, yes, in my book I cover that. And also, yeah. And also, when you had mentioned the reason or why I wrote the book is because I wanted to speak about my father's death. That is true, but really the reason why I'm writing this book is because my father came to me and asked me to write it.
Mm.
So when I was about 9 years old, I had a visit from my father, which took me a while to realize it was my father. I thought it was a ghost, typical ghost story. So I really write about that in great detail about how that impacted me, and what I thought when I saw this ghostly figure come into my room when I was wide awake, and he took me through an intellectual process that allowed me to not fear him. But first I had to run to my mom's bedroom and say, "Mom, there's a ghost in my room." And she kicked me out. She's like, "Boy, there's no such thing as ghosts. I gotta sleep. I gotta work in the morning. Get out of here." So I had to go back to my room. I got to the door and jumped back in bed, put the covers over my head, and I was like, "It's gonna go away. It's gonna go away." And after like what seemed like hours, I was like, "Phew," pull the covers down, still there. This ghostly figure. And then this time it came closer to the foot of my bed. And as soon as it got closer, I kind of lost that fear. And I just kind of accepted it because it wasn't happening. It wasn't going to go away. So I had to accept it, and I just kind of lay in bed. And my father began to ask me to do this for him. I'm the youngest of four. I'm not sure why he chose me, but it's taken me 10 years to write this book. When I decided to write it was because I saw the CNN article when I was at work as an adult. So now I'm an adult, and I started to think, wait, my father asked me to do this when I was not even hardly 9 years old.
Would you add, is that in the middle of the book, or is that how you begin?
That's how I began the book. I was tossing out, should I start in the middle, should I start towards the end? So there's so many different stories in the book that I just decided to start from the beginning. So you'll have to read the book to find out all the cool little stories.
So does it continue with your journey in life, or does
Yes.
the book go
The
to
book covers
pieces of the puzzle putting together about your
the
mom?
book covers all the pieces of the puzzle, all of my family members, and the dynamics that we had to go through to bring about change in our lives, and to finally bury my father with a 21-gun salute, and finally have him recognized as a veteran and military war hero. He also got the Congressional Medal of Honor. So all of that is in the book. So the journey is all there, and then I continue in my own personal life in terms of reflecting what I feel this country needs and what we need as human beings to just be able to love one another, and how difficult that is for us to do.
Did you have any comments or anything to say, Miss Sylvia?
Um, well, I guess I do have some comments because I am deep in my family's genealogy, and that's the two of us in that. I'm not writing the book. I've been told that I should before. But I have boxes and boxes of information that I have begun, but then I had some health issues that stopped me from doing that. And I know that if, when I go, my children who care less about who they were, they're gonna toss it out. And there's some things that you cannot get anymore because it's closed down. But I'm from the generation that needs to be spared, or math, or the way it looked back in such and such a place. I used to spend all of my days down at one another here. All of my grandchildren have been there, so I guess I put the knowledge for some of them. They don't care. Some of them don't care whether anything about our well-blended family, generations of people who had property and lost it, and or who had property and passed down through the family line. I have an interest in that. I deep-seated interest in that. So I have not stopped. And gonna have to move out of my house for at least a year because I receive income. And I don't want my kids to go.
Right.
I'm sitting in one room with just my reference books, just been looking back through some things. When COVID came, I realized that I needed to get that shot because I have several, more than 4 chronic illnesses that can take me out in a minute. And you can't let things that you don't know about really stop you from doing something. Because you have a deep-seated desire in your soul, but you need to know these things. Somebody needs to know. Somebody needs to live to tell the tale. My aunts and my mother, they never went anywhere alone in the down south. They always had someone there because women were being raped and killed. We had to, I remember sitting on the trunk in the middle of the road and before daybreak when the bus had dropped us off. And I was sitting on the trunk and leaning as my relatives go to sleep. And they, people were stopping and saying, y'all need a ride? Y'all ain't from around here, right? And they would say, well, who those people down here? Because I always want to know. I said, well, that's why our people are first. Oh, yeah, he's a good nigga. He's good people. So, okay, well, we just see you later, and then someone finds a key to get us and take us. And it was a sandy road, I remember that, I remember being in the blueberry patch, not knowing they had snakes in the blueberry patch, and my grandmother told me, don't be out there. And being with an elder who told my grandmother what to do because nobody told her what to do. Well, leave the child alone. And she didn't bother nobody. And going to a picnic where I drank a soda pop and ate a lot of different things with the church. It was always a church community. And as time has gone on, I've gone back to those churches. Everybody had a belief in God and spiritual things. My mother was always the one that saw stuff. My mother was the one that had the nervous breakdown, where she would say the Satan is my God was almighty, pass out. I lived through mental illnesses that came from the oppression that we had gone through across the past. And I want to know more, and I want to know why I can walk into a room or I could be around people that know that I'm not safe, or my children being safe. So, when I met Calvin, he just, I thought it was really great information that I didn't know how to get. Because we had some people that were in the Civil War, they had land and different things like that. And passed out through the family, but you didn't know what family line went to. I have many destinies that tell what people died from, who was the person that reported it, and then they're a member of the family or a neighbor lived down the block. So there are many avenues to find these research avenues. Serious research.
That's why it's taking me 10 years.
Can't give up.
So where did you get where did you get?
A lot of the information was presented in the CNN article because they stated references. For example, Robert Mueller, who was special counsel for the Department of Justice for the first impeachment and the second impeachment of Donald Trump. Robert Mueller started the Restorative Justice Project. And so a lot of information came from that project because they covered all the 60s and 70s civil rights murders. 10 civil rights murders. My father was one of the top 10. Emmett Till and Rosa Parks.
Ben civil rights.
The most known, Emmett Till was most known, Rosa Parks, so the top 10, so to speak, the most prominent civil rights murders. My father was among those.
Your other your personal project, Mason,
Freemason.
Freemason, that's when you get
Right.
to research it.
Well, CNN did the research and talked to my family, talked to my brother. My brother was actually on one of the CNN newsreels with all the research part of it. He gave a lot of information. And he's the oldest of the tribe. He's got a lot more information than we do because he was in the middle of it all.
So he's kept good.
Yeah.
He does research too.
Yeah. And he worked with the Clintons and he's a politician, so he's in there. So I was lucky in that sense that a lot of the research was just given to me.
Good that someone. Because we often don't with our families.
Right.
Often that what's really the contributions that we can.
Right. Like I said, because we get torn apart and through so much hatred and not being a lot of opportunities and families being destroyed and being taken. So there's just so much disinformation amongst us in terms of our history because we're dislocated every chance we got by society. So yeah, our history is super important. So
My grandmother was hysterical when they were playing a song on the radio. That's the sound of the wind working on the chain gang. Turn that up, turn that up. And then I wanted to know why I didn't know why, but eventually I found out that we had relatives that were on the chain gang and had been beat, killed, disappeared and stuff. And Lucas and Armstrong's, they had different things. So I started looking, like the name didn't mean anything. I looked at the bloodline. How many generations back, who changed their name, and it eventually just became an obsession. I just spent hours. I don't need anybody to be around me, but I didn't have the access that you had with the military. We have relatives now that are still working in the government. They're still asking questions about family members. Don't ask me anything. I wrote a very nasty letter lately. Don't ask me anything about my ancestors. They're all dead and gone on. I have no money to verify this. But I have people working in the government all the way up to the White House. If you know everything about my family that needs to be done, I'm not doing the work. I'm not losing my mind. I have opinions, and that's that.
Well, I wanted to take this opportunity to say thank you.
Yeah, no, thank you. Yeah. All right. So next event will be next Saturday at 5:30. It's a talk on how to become a doula. It starts at 5:30. There's a sliding scale. Price can pay from between $5 to $25. So you're more than welcome to come on out for that. And see you guys and enjoy your weekend. Bye.